Let's clear this up right now. You didn't gain 5 pounds of muscle or fat overnight, just like you didn't lose 5 pounds of muscle or fat overnight. So if the scale moved by 5 pounds, what actually happened? Let's figure this out, because understanding this can save you months of frustration when you're in a bulk or a cut. What's up? Good morning. Welcome to week 16, moderate push day. This week we have been doing some 1 rep max testing. So we did bench on Monday and we did deadlift yesterday. We're going to take a break today, go back to our normal routine. I might actually even go lower the volume a little bit just so that I can make sure my body's nice and recovered for tomorrow when we do squat. So I'm doing upper body, moderate push, staying away from the lower body since we hit that a little bit yesterday with deadlift. And we'll do that and then pick back up on Friday with moderate pull. Again, just kind of keeping the volume a little bit lower than normal. And then as we discussed yesterday, my plan is to hit a normal week of push-pull legs next week. And then we will do a top back-off set for 1 week. And then we'll have 1 week left and we'll just do single heavies that week to prepare us for the powerlifting meet at the end of the month / beginning of next month. So today, though, what we're going to talk about while we do our workout is extreme weight fluctuations in short amount of time. Right? You've probably seen this if you've tracked your calories and your weight for any amount of time. You've probably seen extreme weight swings overnight or over the course of a couple of days. We're talking not just 1 or 2 pounds, we're talking 5 pounds, 6 pounds. In extreme cases, 10 pounds. You might see the scale go up or down by 10 pounds over the course of a couple of days. I think the biggest swing I've seen overnight has been almost 7 pounds. But it's pretty common for me. In fact, I just talked about it this week. I saw almost 5 pounds. It was 4.5 pounds I saw of weight loss overnight, just in one night, right? It was 190 one day, and then the next I was 185 point something. How does this happen, right? Because cognitively, I know that I didn't lose that weight. I hadn't gained up that much weight in the first place, right? If I was averaging 186 last week, there's no way I gained 4 pounds of fat over the weekend to get to 90 pounds. So what's going on? We'll talk about it. Most of you have watched my videos before and you know that the short answer is water weight. But we throw that term around. What does it actually mean? How does it work? How can you use it to your advantage? I've got a weigh-in before this meet at the end of the month. If I'm not quite down to my desired body weight for my weight division, how can I use the knowledge of water weight manipulation to help me make weight for that lower weight division? Let's find out. In case you're wondering, the moderate push routine is incline bench press with dumbbells, shoulder press that's seated with dumbbells, bench press close grip, lateral raises with dumbbells, and then overhead tricep extensions with the cable machine a little bit later. So this is part of my normal push-pull legs routine I've been doing for the past 5 weeks or 6 weeks now, and I really like it. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video. After the workout, we will do my daily check-in. I do this every workout. I show you what my weigh-in was for the morning and how that fits into my average versus last week, so we can see whether I'm on target for my weight loss goals or not. And then I also look at the nutrition from the day before. I think that this is one of those mysterious, esoteric things when it comes to building muscle and losing weight that people don't really understand how much nutrition goes into it. So when I realized that, I started tracking my calories, and I wish I could look over the shoulder of a buddy who was doing it. So I try to provide that option to you. You can see my calorie tracking app. You can see exactly what the food was, what I ate, how many calories I had, how much protein I had. If you're interested in other macronutrients like carbs and fat, you can also see that. So I just want to make that available to you so you can see how I'm trying to hit my nutrition goals to be able to hit my weight loss goals. And As always, if the information in this video and the content is helpful or interesting to you, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We had a little bit different warm-ups yesterday and Monday for our 1 rep max because we did ramp-ups. Today, back to our normal warm-up. 2 sets, 50%, 1 set at 75% of our working weight. So when it comes to big spikes or dips in scale weight from day to day, we throw around the term water weight around, but there are a couple other things. There are a few factors that go into that. Number one, we'll talk about glycogen. We'll talk about sodium. We'll talk about diuretics and the ADH hormone, the anti-diuretic hormone. And then we'll also talk about, well, the other two things would be inflammation, which is also a form of water. And then just honestly, just gut content, meaning the food in your belly and the stuff in your belly. And really, those are 3 or 4 things that would contribute to large spikes or dips, especially when you're talking about over 1 night or maybe 2 nights. That's when I see the biggest difference. If I have a high calorie weekend, I'll notice a couple over the weekend, the weight climbs up by a couple pounds a night, 4 pounds, up to 5 or 6 pounds. And then I can lose all of that over 1 night or over a couple of nights. So let's get back to the workout, and then we'll talk about each of those things that I mentioned individually. Second warm-up set. Warm-up set at 75%-ish. I might go a little bit lighter on the working weight today, just like I said, to keep the volume down from what it has been. All right, so first up, let's talk about glycogen. What WTF is glycogen? Basically carbs, right? So when you eat carbs, they will get stored. I could be messing this up. The way they understand it is they get stored in your muscle, and glycogen stores with it water. And it looks like it's about 3 to 4 grams of water for every gram of carbs. So if you have a high carb day, like I just had on Sunday when I had spaghetti, you can imagine that your glycogen stores are going to spike, and thus your internal, what we call intracellular, intramuscular water, right? And that's typically not a bad thing. Higher glycogen stores, higher internal muscle water means you're going to, number one, look better because your muscles are going to be full, right? And then you're also going to feel better and feel stronger. So that's why a lot of people will recommend a small little carb load before bodybuilding competition or powerlifting competition, right? It's going to help you feel more energetic and help you look fuller in your muscles. So that can be counterintuitive because a lot of powerlifters or bodybuilders might be worried about having too much water content and looking fluffy. And that's the other type of water. storage, which we'll talk about here in a second. But glycogen would be the first thing. The water will bind to the carbs in your muscles and make your weight, and that we're talking a couple of pounds just from that alone, potentially overnight if you have a high carb day. All right, we're just gonna do 80 pounds. I think I had bumped up to 85 recently. So we'll pull that down, and then I don't know how many reps. It's probably like 8 to 10 or something like that. Same goes for glycogen for dropping your weight, right? If you are eating higher carbs, or if you have regular carbs, then all of a sudden you drop carbs completely out, scale is going to drop because your glycogen levels are going to drop, and therefore your intracellular water in your muscles is going to drop. So when you first start a calorie deficit, this is pretty common, especially because you're going to be eating a lot less calories. And one of the biggest places that you steal those calories from are carbs, because you're trying to increase or keep your protein content high. So that's just naturally what happens for most people within the first few days of starting a cut. You see a big drop off in weight. It's super encouraging, but you have to be careful not to attach to that rate of loss, because it's going to be water that you're losing, and you'll notice it in the bathroom. In your frequency that you're relieving yourself, you'll notice that increases, and your body's just shedding that, right? So it works both ways. Everything that we're saying today works both ways for increasing water weight and decreasing. All right, second set, incline dumbbell bench press. So what is the second form of water weight category? This is probably the first thing that most people think of. I've certainly mentioned it on my channel in relation to my high calorie Fridays where we go to a Mexican restaurant. You guessed it, it's your old pal, sodium. Most people realize that increased sodium leads to increased water retention. But I would say it's a little different than the way that increased water weight from glycogen from carbs works. Sodium is going to increase your water ratio, the dilution in your blood. So we would call this extracellular, I think would be the term. So it's not water that's in your muscles, water that's flowing throughout your body via blood vessels and stuff. And this is the one that most people fear, especially bodybuilders, because it's where you can look fluffy, right? You can have great body fat percentage, but then have a high sodium day and then just look like super fluffy the next day. You can gain 4 or 5 pounds overnight, and then the next day look super fluffy. So I am not like a human biologist, so I'm not an expert, but the way I understand it is increased sodium content in your blood triggers your kidneys to retain water, not release as much, and vice versa. So if you drop your sodium, right, so you have less sodium in your blood, your ratio between sodium and water is going to be off, so your kidneys are going to trigger you to release more water. Something about that. I might have to cut that and double check how that works. Let's say it again. Increased sodium content in your blood means that you need to hold on to more water. so that the water can have a better ratio so it can catch up to the amount of sodium. If you decrease your sodium, then it needs to trigger to your kidneys trigger releasing the water so that, again, you don't have too much water to sodium ratio. So I am saying that correctly. And the mechanism that does that is what we'll talk about next, and that's the ADH hormone, anti-diuretic hormone. All right, last set of incline bench. Keeping it light today. We're 10 pounds overall lighter and doing 8 reps instead of 10. Ooh. ADH is exactly what it sounds like, anti-diuretic hormone. If you know what a diuretic is, that is something that causes you to expel more water, to urinate more frequently. And so anti-diuretic hormone is in charge of inhibiting diuresis. So the more ADH you have, the less you pee. When ADH is suppressed, so throughout your body, you're going to pee more, right? Because the anti-diuretic, it means yes, diuretic. So everything that we talked about with the sodium is the trigger, I guess you could say. I think glycogen probably affects that as well. And then your ADH is the knob that changes to make sure that the ratio of your water and the other elements are in a good balance. So that's why when you drop carbs and drop sodium, your body says, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to make sure that we're releasing water at the same rate, right? Or if you carb load and sodium load, your body's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't have enough water to handle this influx of sodium and carbs. So we need to hold on to that water. We're going to not release it. So I will say that there are ways of manipulating ADH outside of just those with diuretics, literally over-the-counter pills that you can get, or caffeine, or alcohol. We'll talk about that in a sec. All right, let's get our first set of overhead press. I, again, went down in weight a little bit, so we're at 100 instead of 110. Shooting for that 8 to 10 reps. I'm going to get on my soapbox here about caffeine being a diuretic. It is a myth that caffeine will dehydrate you. People will say caffeine, it's a diuretic. So well, it stands to reason if you drink caffeine or you consume caffeine, you're going to excrete all of your water and you get dehydrated. That's not how it works, folks. Caffeine, number one, is a mild diuretic. It's not as if it's going to trigger to your body to release all of your water. Number two, caffeine, as it relates to coffee, this is really what I'm talking about. Caffeine obviously is a diuretic. If you take it without any water, sure. But most people consume it with coffee. What is coffee made with? Coffee beans and water. Guys, when you drink coffee, you are drinking as much or more water than what you will release. And you can look this up, right? There's a study. Coffee counts. The water that you drink doesn't not count. It doesn't pass through you and go. It still counts as hydration, right? When I think about the water I drink in the day, I consider the coffee that I drink. It's still water. It happens to have a mild diuretic in there, and so I might pee more than I would if I didn't drink caffeine. But guys, caffeine via coffee alone is not going to dehydrate you. The amount of water you consume from the coffee is going to outweigh the amount of water you expel because of the diuretic effect. I think that's the simplest way I can say it. And I don't have the studies pulled up, but if you look at the coffee dehydration myth, there are plenty of people debunking that. It's just one of those things that people latched onto. There was one study that showed the diuretic effects, and then people are like, oh, it's going to dehydrate you. And then once one person cites it, then another person cites them, who cites them, and then it just snowballs into this myth, right? So please don't avoid coffee because you're scared it's going to dehydrate you. It's still water. It's still water. Now, again, caffeine pills without taking water, if you're taking something to expel more water than what you're taking in, then yes, that'll dehydrate you. All right. There are other diuretics to talk about. We'll come back to that. All right, second set. So I won't go into actual diuretic medication or pills or anything like that. The one that I will talk about is alcohol. So you probably have experienced this. You drink a little bit of alcohol and then you notice that, man, you are up that night probably peeing, and then the next day you're also going, and you're like, man, I guess it's just all that water from the alcohol leaving. Well, there probably wasn't much water in the alcohol, sweetie. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. Alcohol is a different chemical than H2O. They are disparate. Sometimes you have a little bit of H2O in your alcohol via dilution or ice, but no, the alcohol itself is not a hydrating fluid, sweetie. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, so it's actually one of the quote natural diuretics that you can do. Old school bodybuilders might have done before medicated type diuretics. I've seen some people who are trying to do a bodybuilding competition naturally, and that's what they'll do to try and dry themselves out. Because remember, the thing that we want in bodybuilding is you want to have low sodium and you want your extracellular water to be super low. You want to have a very paper thin skin, so you don't want any water between your skin and your muscles. Now, on the other hand, you do want glycogen up. You do want intracellular muscle water to be up. So you might see a combination of low sodium, medium to high carbs, and then a little bit of alcohol to trigger you to expel water. And that might get you the dryness that you're looking for while still being somewhat full, right? You don't want your muscles to be small because they're not filled with glycogen. So alcohol, I'm not saying or sponsoring or endorsing lots of alcohol consumption. We're talking for a very specific purpose. This is what I can do as a tool if you want to do that. But also I'm just explaining what happens if you drink alcohol, not when you do. If you do, this is what will happen. It also has other effects. So alcohol will suppress ADH, causing you to pee more, but it also has effects on your metabolism as well. It's empty calories. There are calories in alcohol. The way that I understand it is if you're in a surplus, it can inhibit, I'm probably going to say this wrong. I think it can inhibit fat oxidation when you're in a cut, and it can contribute to more calories being converted to fat when you're in a surplus rather than protein synthesis and gaining muscle. So just something to not really mess with if you can avoid it, honestly. Last set of overhead press. Up next, we've got bench press, close grip. I will probably go, as is the theme today, a little lighter, especially because I just did 1 rep max just a couple days ago on bench. So definitely not going to feel super great. And then I just keep my overall energy output moderate today so that I can feel good tomorrow. Might eat some carbs tonight to try and get a nice feeling for squats. 1 rep max tomorrow. All right, we've got close grip bench. I'm loaded on 175 instead of 185. So maybe we can get 6 to 8 of these. Whoa, shit. As I forgot the 45 pounder. Where's my head at? Where is it? All right, we're back with the correct weight. It should be even on both sides now. Let's try this again. We have talked about glycogen, sodium, ADH, and other diuretics, including caffeine and alcohol. And a couple other reasons why your body weight may fluctuate. It may surprise you to know that the food that you eat weighs a certain amount. And when you take that food that is outside your body that weighs a certain amount and you put it on top of or even inside your body, it adds to the mass of your body. This is groundbreaking, I know, but just think about it. If you have a big meal at night and you weigh yourself in the morning before you have excreted anything out of your body, your weight's going to go up. Same thing if prior day you eat less food than normal and your last meal is maybe earlier, right? And you have your normally bodily functions during that day. And then the next day you weigh yourself, you'll find your body weight is less. It's simply because of the amount of food in or not in your gut. So yes, water weight, but also just the mass of the food that you eat. The last reason that we'll hit is just draining inflammation. And it's probably the least impact, but still worth mentioning. All right, second set, close grip bench. And I'm pausing a little bit more to get used to that with my bench press for the lift for the meet, which is a good thing the volume's down because I noticed 6 felt good on the last one, where I probably would have done 8 on touch and go. Inflammation. You may or may not know that inflammation is literally like fluid buildup, right? Or at least that's part of it. So a lot of times a high volume or a particularly hard workout can cause inflammation, particularly a lot of us get it in our knees, right? Or maybe your elbows, your shoulders, or something like that. So that's going to contribute to your body is putting fluid there. And so that's less fluid that it's getting rid of. It's holding on to that. So that can also contribute to extra water weight or water retention, meaning increased weight. So if you put it all together and you think about Friday, you have a super heavy leg day or a pull day with deadlifts, something really heavy. And you go out for Mexican that night and you eat a bunch of tortilla chips. Tortilla chips that's sodium and carbs and fat, and some rice, right? Maybe you get good protein from the fajitas or some kind of chicken or whatever, but you're getting lots of carbs with your rice, lots of sodium from the chips and the rest of the food. And then you have a margarita. Well, actually, let's hold the margarita out for now. That's a recipe for you gaining 5 or plus pounds, especially if it's more food than you normally eat. So you're going to be in a calorie surplus. You're have more carbs than normal, more sodium than normal. Your body's going to be like, I am not letting go of an ounce of this water. Having some alcohol may help counteract some of that because it's an ADH suppressant. So you may still pee a little bit. But then I would say that's probably a bad idea if you're at a deficit, because it's going to inhibit the fat oxidation, and you're going to be in a surplus. So it's actually maybe going to try and convert some of that to fat. And then the opposite. Think about this past weekend where I had a higher calorie day and I had spaghetti for dinner, and then I weighed 190. I went from like 186 the week before to 190 on Monday. And then I just had a regular Monday for me, for my calorie deficit on my cut. So it was like not quite 1600 calorie day. So I went from 3000 calorie day to a 1600 calorie day, and relatively low sodium and carbs, high protein. Guys, I peed so much that day and overnight, and the next day I had lost almost 5 pounds. So this isn't make-believe, this isn't hypothetical. I have lived this out, and many of you have lived out these swings. And this is why it is so crucial to look at your average weight over a week, right? Because these fluctuations are inevitable. It's every day, it's real life. They will happen. You will eat more carbs than normal, and your water weight will spike certainly 1 or 2 pounds, if not closer to 4 or 5 pounds, right? And same thing, you'll lose that weight. You're not gaining and losing fat and muscle that acutely, right? That is won out over longer periods of time, over weeks and months. So don't get discouraged if you see the scale wobbling and stuff like that. That's why getting the weekly average, or even better, doing a smooth average on a rolling weekly basis, is the best way to look at your weight trend over time. You just want to look for a downward trend if you're in a deficit. You just want to look for a slight upward trend over time if you're in a surplus. So take heart, stay the course. Don't freak out over big spikes and dips in your weight. Last set of this close grip bench. We're getting towards the end of the workout. I've got lateral raises, 40 pounds. I want to say one thing about lateral raises with dumbbells. I've seen people criticize these in videos talking about how you don't get any tension at the bottom because of the way gravity works. And they talk about how it's not the best thing for your shoulder. And I just like, guys, I don't know. I haven't really noticed my shoulders lacking. And I'm not saying I've got the best shoulders in the world, but I haven't been like, man, I don't think my shoulders are growing, and it's because of these stupid lateral raises. We can get so bent out of shape about getting the most optimum movement. You're talking about a few percentage points of efficiency. For most of us, that's not what matters. Just hitting the same movement consistently with progressive overload, that's going to get you 80% of your gains, as long as you also have good nutrition and rest, right? Those 3 things alone, consistently hitting that weight in a progressively overloading fashion with good nutrition and rest, that's 80 to 90% of it. Making sure you have the exact right planning routine, and you're doing the exact right movements in your form. And we're talking like small percentages, like small beans, small percentage of what is going to contribute to muscle growth and gains. So don't get bent out of shape and thinking like, oh, I have to buy this expensive cable machine or this machine that's built just for delts because otherwise my delts won't grow. If you are a professional bodybuilder and you are wanting to get your delts increased because they're already massive, but they're not as big as your pecs or something like that, sure, I think that makes sense. But if you're an average Joe like me and you're just looking to look decently good and, you know what, almost jacked, right? That's the name of the channel. You want to look moderately jacked, average, above average, almost shredded. You don't have to get super optimized with that, right? That's why you see a lot of these videos too about really all you need is 3 days a week, right? If you can commit to 3 days a week of a decent routine and do that consistently with progressive overload, good nutrition, and adequate rest, you will see results, guys. It just takes time. Right? You're not going to see it day one. You're not going to see it week 1 or week 2. After month 2, 3, you'll notice a difference. After month 6, you will be excited about the difference. All right, I think we're going to cut the workout a little short today. I'm running out of time. Started a little later. And also said I want to make sure that I'm not expending myself too much. So I'm just going to do 2 sets of these. This will be the last set. And I don't know, maybe I'll end it there or I'll do some triceps. I don't know. We're going to end the workout there because I did triceps with close grip bench press, so I don't need to hit another tricep thing today. Let's go ahead and do our check-in. We weighed in at 185.3 today, as you can see here. That's just a hair down from yesterday, which is nice. I had another decently calorie adherence the day before, and decent carbs and protein and sodium and all that, blah, 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 right? I would like to see that be the average for the week. So I'd like to see the average be more like 185-ish or lower. This 190 is going to throw everything off, but what can you do? This is only looking at the weekly static average, right? And I've talked about before how I need to move this app so it's easier to get to. I like the macro factor, their weight trend where it's a smooth average and it's a rolling smooth average. So it updates for every 7-day window. It readjusts and updates. But you can see it. You can't even see my 190 weigh in at the top there. The light purple truncates that off, and you can see the most that it let my actual weight get up to. It was 187.7, and now the fact that I've dipped all the way down, it's not overcorrecting and saying you're down to 185. It's saying your weekly trend is trending down again. 180 will grant you 0.4 pounds, 187.7 to 187.3. I would imagine if I keep this up for another few days or the rest of the week, that trend is going to start coming down. So that's when you start to see these dots start to move down, is when you have 5, 7 or more days in a row at that lower weight. That's when the calculation kicks in and says, oh, we really are trending down that way. But this is great to keep you in check so you don't look at the scale and think, oh man, I went way up today, or man, how great I'm doing, I went way down today. Keeps reality in check both ways. I like that. Looking at nutrition yesterday, a little bit higher, 1,800 calories. And that is just because I entered you see, I've got this artisan Italian bread on here 3 times with butter. The one was planned, that was with dinner. The second one, it was so good I had to go back for another smaller piece. And then the third one was I talked about this yesterday, I want to be better at entering everything. So I had my son's leftover little crust that he doesn't eat. You might say that's gross, but I'd say I'm a dad, that's what we do. And so I wanted to, this maybe isn't 100% accurate of what it weighed, but I wanted to at least try and attempt to record that, just to be more faithful to the numbers so I have better data to work with. The rest of dinner was just a salad and some rotisserie chicken. Pretty decent. I think the protein to calorie ratio would have been better without those second 2 pieces of bread, but what are you going to do? Morning was pretty typical for me lately, just my coffee with a Bronze David bar. Lunch, I had some fajita flavored chicken strips with a protein hummus wrap, and then some salsa with that. And then these other things were just eaten in addition: an orange, some popcorn, some little chomp sticks, and another David bar. And then for various snacks I had throughout the day, a couple cups of yogurt, carrot. I did have a couple of graham crackers because I was feeling really hungry in the middle of the afternoon. And my peppermint gum that I have been having pretty religiously lately. And that is a good hack if you haven't tried that before. If you're struggling with a calorie deficit and you're just like, man, I just want something sweet, I just need to have something going on, try some peppermint gum. Another hack is brushing your teeth. You're less likely to, other food doesn't taste as good, or you don't have a desire to eat other food after you freshly brush your teeth, or if you're actively chewing on something like gum. So just a little hack that I do. So today, going to try and keep it in the same ballpark, 1,500 to 1,800. That's what would be a success for me today. I do need to adhere to my calorie deficit these next 3 to 4 weeks if I want to hit the 82.5 kilogram weight division. That's something like, I think it's a little less than 182 pounds. And I'm currently, you just saw 185.3 today. So, I mean, I've got over 3 pounds to lose. I've got 4-ish weeks to do it. So I do need to adhere to this calorie deficit to be able to lose those 3 to 4 pounds. Hopefully we can do it. If this has been helpful, subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow when we find my 1 rep max for squat.